Thank you everyone for being here, and a particular thanks to our hosts today, the President of the University of Economics here, the CMC Graduate School of Business, and in particular Thomas, who's been so kind to Caroline and myself over the last couple of days, and to the Czech Management Academy. It's fantastic to have the opportunity to be able to talk about a subject as important as competitiveness and productivity here in the Czech Republic, and particularly a delight after an improvement in our rankings we've been producing at the World Economic Forum for over 35 years, and a great improvement of 9 points in the ranking. And I just wanted to take now 10 minutes or so to give an outline of the context, to talk a little bit about what we mean by competitiveness and why it is important to have these kind of discussions, not just amongst management professionals, not just amongst economists, but also with representatives of the government, with academia and the pipeline of skills and talent in an economy, and with private companies and really the heart of economic activity, which is in the private sector. As I said, as Roman introduced, I have my colleague Caroline Galvan with me here today to give you a bit of an insight into our roles. I have the privilege of being the head of Europe, which means I look across all of the World Economic Forum's engagement across this region. But Caroline is the expert in competitiveness and the economist on our team. So I will be giving the broad overview, and then Caroline will correct everything that I say that is wrong when she comes up and gives the very specific insights into the results of the Czech economy that you'll be able to see in the report. So that's how we'll run this very briefly. And I wanted to start by asking the question, why do we even need to study competitiveness, and what's important about it at this point in time? As the Deputy Minister pointed out, we are here in Europe at a point of inflection, coming out of a difficult time in terms of economic growth, employment, and overall demand, obviously caused by numerous international and local factors. But the point is that here we stand at a point where, as monetary and fiscal levers may start to ease off, as the assistance that has been coming centrally in Europe may be coming to an end, it is even more important that economies look to the very structural elements of how they create economic activity and demand, how they create stable institutions, strong infrastructure, and the efficiency-enhancing measures of the economy on which to base value-added and innovative economic activity. And without investment and focus on these really basic elements, we won't be able to regain this growth path and sustain a growth path of prosperity and delivery to all members of society, which of course is the goal that I hear every day from governments, from companies, and from our social partners around Europe. Why is the World Economic Forum involved in this at all? Well, it's partly that legacy of 35 years ago. Our chairman, Professor Klaus Schwab, decided to look at a cross-section of European and other countries around the issue of competitiveness. But it's also because of the far right of this diagram, which is that our motto is that our mission is that we're committed to improving the state of the world. And we believe that one important part of that is inclusive, productive societies that deliver the ability for all citizens to contribute, and to contribute in such a way that they live up to their individual and collective potential. We do this in 3 ways. On the far left, we do it by bringing multiple groups of stakeholders together. So we feel that we don't succeed unless we really drive these conversations between government, academia, business, and civil society. In the center here, the perception of the World Economic Forum is often of discussions and dialogue. And that is true. We spend a lot of time talking and aligning different stakeholders. I implore you, please don't underestimate the power of positive, constructive dialogue to create the kind of consensus and agendas that are required to move forward in these spaces. The forum is also very pleased and proud to have been involved in agenda-setting measures to influence and work with bodies such as the European Commission. And indeed, I currently sit on a group in Brussels with Jan and Microsoft through the DG Enterprise, which looks at how entrepreneurship and innovation can be put forward as a priority of the Commission. And these kind of agenda-shaping activities are very important for everyone to be involved in. And that's why we want to, as Roman said, hear your views and questions around the ideas today to make sure that agenda is being refined and communicated as well as possible. And then we would like to have this conference today, these discussions to have impact. And I'm sure that I share the sentiments of the University of Economics, the CMC Graduate School of Business and the Czech Management Association, that the whole purpose of us meeting here is not just to spend an interesting few hours together in meeting rooms, but rather to gather our collective energy and see how things can be changed positively in the way that the Czech economy is operating, reforming, structuring towards that growth path. The World Economic Forum produces a number of different reports and data on this, and we'll be discussing one of those today, which is the Global Competitiveness Report. But we also do a number of other analyses, including one specifically on Europe every 2 years, the Europe 2020 Competitiveness Report, because we feel in Europe there are specific targets and goals that the Commission sets for EU member states around competitiveness, which we need to benchmark and gather and rate ourselves against, as well as the more global work that we do with the Global Competitiveness Report. 144 economies is the data source and comparison that we're talking about here. And what we aim to measure with this work, as I said, is the long-term sustainable growth path of an economy. And you can see here that over many years, from 1980 forward, you can see large gaps in growth paths. And we're looking to understand the factors, the aspects, the institutions that drive the differentials between those different growth paths. Many people, when we say competitiveness, immediately think, well, why don't we just subsidize industries, slash costs, and then we'll be more competitive. When we say competitiveness, we define it rather around productivities, the set of institutions, policies, and factors that determine the level of productivity of a country or economy, taking into account its level of development. So we don't treat all 144 economies the same. For some economies, they're going to be focused more on resources. Some economies are going to be focused more on efficiency, manufacturing, gathering together their different assets and using those in export-driven ways. And others will be at the frontier of innovation. So in our methodology, we make sure we take that into account. And we are firmly of the belief as an economic forum that it's the level of productivity that sets the level of long-term sustainable prosperity. And that is especially true in Europe, where we don't have large population growth, where, as the President said, we have demographic shifts coming up and we can't rely on additional flows of people outside of immigration to drive growth. It's this intrinsic productivity growth which is the key to continuing prosperity in the region. This shows a little bit of a heat map where the more blue it is, the better it is, the more yellow it is, the worse it is. But it just shows you a little bit the distribution of rankings and scores around the world in the most recent report, which was launched at the beginning of this month. And you can see that there's a lot of blue in the top left in terms of the US and Canada, but very heavily concentrated in Europe in particular. And I want to just quickly take you through the rankings globally, at least some highlights to let you know where we stand. As someone that lives in Geneva, I am proud that Switzerland has come number one again for a number of years in a row now, followed by Singapore. So this is Europe and Asia, two standout economies, both relatively small, putting together the factors of productivity in ways that are incredibly efficient and that are also incredibly innovative, very much at the high end of those two issues. The United States rising in the rankings slightly compared to last year, and Finland. So in terms of the EU 28, we see Finland coming into the rankings there, followed very quickly by a number of other European economies, as well as Japan, Hong Kong coming in there as well. So the top 10, really 6 out of the top 10 are European economies. It's a great testament to the fact that Europe has an incredible capacity for innovation, for productivity growth. And I think we need to be really positive and proud of the fact that Europe has this very high end, even though, as Caroline will talk about as well, Europe is also incredibly diverse. And we see a number of countries that are lagging. And it's emboldening to see that the Czech Republic has gained this momentum moving up the rankings recently. Czech Republic is this year at 37 out of 144 economies. Last year it was 46. That's an improvement of 9 places, which is fantastic. And Caroline will take us a little bit more through the trend of what that has looked like onto different indicators and how that move has been explained. But it really remains for me to say that this movement up in the rankings is a huge opportunity for the country at the point in time where we stand to grasp to come together around the necessary kind of reforms and investments at different points in the value chain, at different aspects of the economy to build long-term growth. So here is an opportunity to focus attention around this issue and work together as government and business. And that's a critical theme of our work. Overall, we see that as monetary policy may ease as a lever of driving global recovery, the growth path of Europe, the growth path of the Czech Republic really requires this reform-minded progress. So this is focusing on the key weaknesses, strengthening the strengths, as Caroline will take us through. The heart of this, we believe, both for the Czech economy but also globally, is investment and skills in skills and in innovation. As Jan will probably say, education is the mantra, skills is the mantra. We need to really think about how the economy is delivering the skills that the private sector needs, and not just what the private sector is demanding today, because by the time you deliver that in 3 years' time, it's too late. It's what the economies that the Czech Republic is looking to compete with and work with, what skills they are demanding ahead of the curve that need to be invested in here in the economy. And this means not just university enrollments, which is great, but it means convincing employers and private sector to provide more and better on-the-job training. It means really making sure that vocational training and education standards are really up to scratch and bringing those into line with where the economy needs to be. And also, it's a huge amount about motivating young people themselves to take as much control and charge as possible as the opportunities that they have within themselves. The opportunity for self-learning, for complementary learning through technology, through the resources that are available online and remotely is incredible today and surpasses anything that we could have imagined even 10 years ago with the explosion of assets such as the Khan Academy. So really building momentum around the Czech Republic's greatest asset, which is the youth that will be driving into leadership positions in the near future, that is where we need to focus on. And I know that this is something that Jan is passionate about, so he will actually give the informed view from Microsoft. Then finally, a really important key point, which I've mentioned a couple of times here, is one big thing that the World Economic Forum has learnt in terms of the success of economies around reforming in this way, is that it requires collaboration. It requires the public sector and the private sector to work together in ways that they are not used to doing. It requires policy consensus and stability within government, across ministries and between ministries, and then building on that, the engagement of business leaders and employees and employers in ways that you can actually realize the change. And this is just as true in the issue of institutions and corruption as it is around labor market reforms, as it is in skills development, and especially as it is in innovation, where the Czech Republic and the government is investing a huge amount in innovation centers, but to make sure that those are optimally operating, to make sure they really produce the results that they want, it needs to be partnerships between education and academia and the private sector to make sure those cutting-edge ideas come out of interdisciplinary discussions and move into commercial ideas. They become value-adding contributions to economic activity that you as Czech citizens and the government can be proud of and can drive that growth and employment. And I think, just to sum up before I hand over to Caroline to talk about the details, we stand at a really important point here in the country, an important opportunity to focus the discussion on productivity and competitiveness. And as the World Economic Forum, we're not just happy, but delighted to be invited here by our research partners who do so much to provide this data, by the university and the government and others to speak, in order to facilitate that conversation and provide any and all the data that we have that can help you and the economy at large succeed in this long-term path to prosperity that we all hope to see.